You new Dallas fans, y'all gonna block me today. Yeah, y'all gonna block me today. Montana 700 fans, all y'all bitch ass niggas gonna block me today. Check this out. Man, I'm just seeing a post that a nigga made about Lil Bro. No. We ain't finna do that, say thug. I don't know what's going on with the internet, just popping they shit about him. Y'all ain't been playing with him, don't start playing with him. I don't know what going on with y'all. Just cause Lil Bro on tour, that don't mean things changed up around this. Niggas still got structure going on, so I don't know what the going on. Montana hollering about, oh, you should've listened to that nigga and listened to that. That's nigga, you could go be with that. Wrong with a nigga, man. You know, we still putting shit up for cuz, man. Ain't nothing to say.
What's good, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we need to talk about something serious that's been brewing in the hip-hop world, and it's reaching a point where things could get really dangerous. We're talking about the beef between Montana 700 and NBA YoungBoy, and let me tell you, this situation has escalated to a level that goes way beyond typical rap beef. This isn't just about diss tracks and social media back and forth anymore. We're looking at a situation where real violence has been implied, where threats have been made, and where the power dynamics are so uneven that one side could be in genuine danger. So let's break this whole thing down from the beginning, talk about how we got here, and discuss why this matters not just for these two artists but for hip-hop culture as a whole. First, let's establish the foundation of this beef, because it didn't just pop up overnight. Montana 700 has been in the Dallas hip-hop scene for a while now, building his name and trying to carve out his own space in the industry. He's a talented artist with his own fan base, but here's where things get complicated. For years now, Montana has been throwing shots at NBA YoungBoy. We're not just talking about one or two comments. This has been a consistent pattern of behavior where Montana posts videos, drops bars in his music, and makes references that are clearly directed at YoungBoy. Sometimes these disses are direct and obvious, other times they're more subtle and coded, but if you're paying attention and you understand the culture, you know exactly who he's talking about and what he's saying. This isn't new beef. This is something that's been simmering under the surface for a long time, building up over months and years of accumulated disrespect. Now let's talk about who NBA YoungBoy is and why dissing him is such a risky move. YoungBoy is one of the biggest artists to come out of the South in recent years. He's from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and his rise in the music industry has been nothing short of phenomenal. We're talking about streaming numbers that put him in conversations with the absolute biggest names in hip-hop. His fan base is massive, loyal, and incredibly organized. They show up for him every single time. Beyond just the music and the fans, YoungBoy has earned respect from his peers in the industry and has the kind of machinery behind him that only comes when you reach a certain level of success. When you're at that level, information travels fast. If someone in Dallas is dissing you, that news gets back to you within hours. It moves through social media, through your circle, through the industry grapevine. You hear everything. And here's the critical thing to understand about power dynamics in hip-hop. When you reach YoungBoy's level of success, you don't just have fame and money, you have influence that extends far beyond music. You have associates, you have people around you, you have connections, you have the kind of leverage where even a small sign of disrespect can turn into something much more serious very quickly. That's not a threat, that's just the reality of how power works when you're at the top of the game. So Montana has been taking shots at someone who has significantly more power, more resources, and more reach than he does. For a while, these disses just existed on the internet, videos sitting on YouTube, clips on Instagram, content that was out there but not necessarily making huge waves. But here's where the timeline becomes really important, because something changed recently that acted as the real trigger for this situation escalating. Those old clips, those old videos where Montana was dissing YoungBoy, they started resurfacing. Suddenly they were making rounds again on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, everywhere across the social media ecosystem. And this is crucial to understand. It's not always about new disses being created. Sometimes the most powerful move is when old content that's been dormant suddenly becomes relevant again and starts circulating widely. When that happens, it forces a response from the other side, because now it's not just sitting there quietly, it's actively being seen by thousands or millions of people. New disses you can address head-on, as they come, But old clips resurfacing suggests something different. It suggests that someone is deliberately putting that content back out there. It suggests a coordinated effort to remind people of what was said, to bring that disrespect back into the spotlight. That's actually a strategic move, whether Montana orchestrated it himself or whether it happened organically through his fans or through algorithms. When content like that starts making waves again, in the streets and in hip-hop culture, silence can look like weakness. If someone is publicly disrespecting you and that content is going viral and you don't address it, the narrative starts to shift. People begin to think you're either scared to respond or you don't care enough to defend yourself. YoungBoy's entire brand is built on a certain level of respect and control. He's known as someone who handles his business, someone who doesn't let disrespect slide. So when Montana's clips started popping up again and gaining traction, it became something that had to be addressed. And that's when we started seeing what I'll call checks happening. By checks I mean associates from YoungBoy's circle started confronting Montana and making their position crystal clear. This brings us to Lil Pap, who is the person whose response really changed the temperature of this entire situation. For those who might not be familiar with the dynamics here, Lil Pap is connected to YoungBoy's circle in ways that matter. When I say connected, I mean he moves with YoungBoy's energy. He represents that side of things and he has credibility within that space. He's not just some random person on the internet saying random things. He's someone with history, with real connections, with known affiliations that people in the know recognize and respect. When Montana kept pushing forward with his disses and kept creating content clearly directed at YoungBoy, Lil Pap responded, and his response was aggressive and unambiguous. He made a statement that has become the focal point of why this situation is now being taken so seriously. He said, "We still killing for YoungBoy." Now, I need to make a really important distinction here, because this isn't just tough talk for the camera or social media engagement. This is coded language within hip-hop culture, and you have to understand what that statement actually means and represents. When someone says "we still killing for YoungBoy," that's a declaration of loyalty and a warning wrapped into one sentence. It's saying that YoungBoy has soldiers, he has people who are willing to go to war for him, he has associates who are organized and deeply committed. If you keep disrespecting him, you're not just going to have to answer to him alone. You're going to have to answer to a collective, to an organization. That statement is where this situation officially stopped being about competitive rap bars and social media beef and started becoming something else entirely. That's where it crossed into territory that made people in the industry sit up and pay attention, because that's not metaphorical language. That's not just rap lyrics or performance. That's establishing boundaries and making it clear that there will be consequences if those boundaries continue to be violated. When you have that level of language being thrown around publicly, we have to be honest about what that represents. This isn't entertainment anymore. This is a genuine escalation that has crossed from competitive artistic expression into territory where actual physical danger becomes a real factor. We can pretend it's all just hype and performance art, but doing so would be ignoring the reality of what's being communicated here. Here's what most people miss when they're looking at this situation from the outside. And this is crucial for understanding what's actually happening beyond what we see publicly. There are always layers to situations like this. There's the public beef that everyone sees, the disses, the social media posts, the confrontations caught on camera. But then there's what's happening in the background that most people never see or understand. Young Mia team isn't responding off pure emotion. They're responding strategically and with calculation. Think about it logically for a moment. YoungBoy has one of the biggest platforms in hip-hop right now. He could respond to Montana directly himself, make it a whole public situation, blow it up with his own voice and his massive reach. That would get enormous attention. That would escalate everything immediately and make it the biggest story in hip-hop. But he's not doing that. Instead, his circle is handling it through associates like Lil Pap. Why would they choose that approach? Because it's actually more effective from a strategic standpoint. It shows restraint while simultaneously showing power. It's a way of saying we don't even need to respond directly ourselves, because we have people, we have organization, we have structure in place that handles these things. That demonstrates control. That's power being exercised without the need to personally engage. And that's a calculated move that people within the industry would recognize immediately as a sign of real strength and organization. Montana, on the other hand, is operating from a completely different position. He's still building his brand, still climbing, still trying to establish himself in a crowded industry. When he keeps dissing YoungBoy, he's getting noticed, he's getting engagement on his content, he's getting his name mentioned in conversations alongside someone who is way bigger than him. From a business standpoint, from a brand building perspective, that actually makes sense. It's working to get his name out there and expand his audience. But from a survival standpoint, from a perspective of understanding power dynamics and real-world consequences, that's where the calculation becomes really complicated and potentially dangerous. This is something about modern beef that people don't want to understand or acknowledge. It's not always about who's the better rapper or who can win a lyrical battle or who has the sickest bars. It's about who has the most to lose and who's willing to go the furthest. YoungBoy has everything to lose. He has fame, money, a huge platform, organization around him, and respect throughout the industry. Because he has so much, his response needs to be measured and controlled and strategic. Montana is still in the building phase of his career. He might feel like he doesn't have as much to lose yet, so he can afford to take bigger risks, keep pushing boundaries, keep testing limits. But that exact type of thinking is what gets people seriously hurt in these situations. That's precisely how situations escalate beyond what anybody originally intended or wanted. The rest of the hip-hop world is watching this play out very carefully. And not just because it's entertaining drama. They're watching because this sets precedent for the culture. How YoungBoy's team handles this situation sends a message to everyone else in the industry. It says this is how we move. This is how we respond to disrespect. This is what happens if you keep pushing us. Other artists in Dallas, other artists throughout the South, other artists period, they're all paying attention. They're seeing how this unfolds in real time. They're asking themselves, would I do the same thing Montana is doing? Or would I recognize the power dynamic at play and fall back before things got serious? That's real calculation happening behind the scenes throughout the industry. And here's something else that adds weight to this situation. YoungBoy has co-defendants. People he's been through situations with. People connected to events that have happened in his life. When Lil Pap or anyone in that circle says we still killing for YoungBoy. People who are in the know understand exactly what that means within its full context. They know the history. They know what YoungBoy has been through. They know what his circle has proven themselves capable of in the past. So that statement isn't just empty tough talk. It's a reminder of what has already been established and demonstrated. That's fundamentally different than if some random person with no credibility said the same words. Context matters enormously. Who's saying it matters? Their history matters. Their credibility within that world matters. Lil Pap has that credibility in that space, which is exactly why his words carry the weight that they do. So the million-dollar question everyone is asking right now is, where does this go from here? Does Montana back off and stop dissing YoungBoy? Does he keep pushing and escalate things further? Does something happen that we haven't seen yet? Based on how these situations typically play out, here's my analysis. Montana has a decision to make, and it's not an easy one at all. If he backs off completely and stops mentioning YoungBoy, some people might interpret that as weakness. His fan base might question whether he's authentic or if he's scared. That could hurt his brand and his credibility. But if he keeps pushing forward with the disses and the provocations, he's essentially playing Russian roulette with a situation that has already been escalated by people who have significantly more power than he does. That's the real trap he's in right now. There isn't a good move available to him at this point. Either way, he loses something valuable. YoungBoy's team has already won the psychological battle here. They've made their point clear. Montana knows they're not playing game. The only question left is whether Montana respects that reality enough to adjust his behavior accordingly, or whether his ego or his business strategy or his need for attention keeps him pushing forward anyway. From a cultural standpoint, this situation matters because it shows how power dynamics in hip-hop operate in real time. It's not always about the best music or the most talented artist winning. Sometimes it's simply about who has the most leverage and who's willing to use that leverage. That's an uncomfortable truth for a lot of people to acknowledge, but it's the reality of how this works. At its core, what we're watching here is a collision of ego, respect, and the mechanics of how power gets maintained and exercised within hip-hop culture. Montana 700 is a talented artist trying to build his brand and expand his career, but he's doing it partially by dissing someone who is significantly bigger and more powerful. That's an inherently risky strategy that only works if you have real leverage of your own. And the question is whether Montana actually has that leverage. YoungBoy's team is making absolutely certain that everyone understands the answer to that question, and the answer is no. They're communicating that through a calculated combination of presence, confrontation, and clear warnings. That's actually smarter and more controlled than a lot of people realize. But when you have explicit language about still killing for somebody being thrown around publicly, that's when we have to be completely real about the stakes involved. This is no longer just rap beef or competitive artistry. This is approaching territory where actual violence becomes a genuine possibility, not just hype or entertainment. For Montana, he has to decide whether continuing down this path is worth the potential consequences. For YoungBoy's side, they've already made their position abundantly clear. Now it's about whether they're willing to escalate further if they continue to be pushed. For the rest of us watching from the outside, we need to recognize that this is real life happening in real time. This isn't a movie or a scripted television storyline. These are two sides with vastly different levels of power, different stakes in the outcome, and different things they feel they need to prove. How this resolves matters not just for the individuals involved, but for hip-hop culture as a whole, and for how we as an audience consume and engage with this type of content. That's what we're dealing with here, and everyone involved needs to think very carefully about their next move.